Okay, I'm nervous, but we're going to do it anyway. Do it scared, right? All right. My name is Samantha. I am the owner and artist of a business called Little Small & Co., where I am a full-time artist. I'm a sculptor, I'm an educator, I'm a jewelry designer, I represent other artisans like myself, and I've been doing this for 6.5 years, full-time, as my full-time job. In September of this year, I made a video about a ghost story that ended up going viral. And very quickly after that, I made one video about Stranger Things, and I got roped into this wonderful universe of Stranger Things content creators. As I have moved through the last couple of months, as well as the series finale, I am just so grateful that we got an ending to this incredible show, but there were a few things that I was really hoping to see in the finale that I did not. So I have a little community of 20,000 people and growing. And all of us kind of jumped on the Delulu train, and I decided that I was going to try my hand at fan fiction. Okay, now, I'm really nervous to share this, but I'm also really excited. So please don't be mean to me. This was just a fun little thing, and it's on construction paper. So, for legal reasons, my name is Samantha, and this was written by me on behalf of my small business, Little Small & Co. LLC. I am not publishing or profiting off of this in any way. My fan fiction is based off of the series Stranger Things, which was created by the Duffer Brothers for Netflix. It was produced by Massacre Productions and 21 Laps Entertainment. I'm looking at the screen because I want to get it right. It was composed by Michael Stein and Kyle Dixon. And I will also be including, so hold on, Dungeons and Dragons, Wikipedia, okay. So I will be using original characters and storylines from Stranger Things, but I will also be injecting some characters from Dungeons and Dragons, which was originally distributed by TSR, but is now distributed by Wizards of the Coast. Okay. I'm scared. Okay. So, for my fan fiction, everything as we saw it was absolutely the case, okay? I'm not changing anything from season 1, 2, 3, 4, or even half of season 5. Where my story picks up is right when 11, 8, and Max walk through the curtains on stage at Hawkins High and find themselves in Henry Creel's living room. And scene. They bust through the curtains and discover Henry sitting at the head of a long oval table surrounded on both sides by a total of 12 children. The children's heads are tilted backwards. Their eyes are blank white. They realize immediately that this is what we've been building up to. 11 reaches out her hand, pulls Henry up out of the chair, and throws him out of the window in his living room. Max runs over to Holly. Holly, we need to get you guys out of here. It's not safe here. The kids start freaking out. Isn't that Max? She's a monster. No, I'm not. And I can prove it to you. Holly settles in and makes the little invisible force field so that the kids can see out, but Henry cannot see in. And scene. Henry arises from the bushes outside of his living room window with glass shards coming out of his face, the back of his head, and the tops of his arms. As he walks into the living room, he looks around and realizes that the children are no longer there. He clenches his fist in anger as the glass shoots out and around the room, but just then, there's a creaking. on the floorboards. It's 11. He looks down. Where are they? She replies, they are with Max. They are safe. You took these children. She raises her hands, and at that moment, Henry rises up, and he's held like this. You know how they do, like this, okay? You took these children from their families, from their homes. You said to me in the lab that Papa was evil, that Papa lies, but you have become just like him. All the doors in the dining room, the lazy butler, everything start to open as the knives, forks, and spoons and all the plates collect around Henry, creating like a cave around him. You are evil, and I cannot allow you to repeat the cycle. All of the dishes break, and all the pointy bits are now pointing towards him. They're about to hit him when all of a sudden, Henry breaks free and throws 11 up against a wall. In that moment, Kali comes out. She then changes what Henry is seeing. And in the mind's eye, the furniture is all over the place, which is a distraction, which causes him to fall over, at which point 11 grabs him, lifts him up, and throws him up through the freaking ceiling. They then jump out the window in the living room to catch up with Max and the kids. Meanwhile, Max and the kids are in the forest. They're running and running and running towards the cave when all of a sudden Holly says, wait, stop. Didn't we just pass that boulder? Max looks over and goes, no, it's just keep running, Holly, we cannot stop, keep running. Oh! And they realize that they are now back at the boulder again because 11 and 8 are now in Camazot's, in Henry's little mindscape. His illusion is starting to fail. It's starting to mesh and blend, and he is rearranging it as it's all falling apart. They keep running. They can't get anywhere. All of a sudden, a rustling in the bushes. Max turns over her shoulder. It's Billy. It's Billy! Billy! Max! They run to each other. They hug. What are you doing here? How is this real? How could you, Max? I don't have time to explain. But the day that I was in the car accident, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I was in this place and it was dark and it was wet and it was just nothing. There was just nothing there. And then all of a sudden I ended up on the beach. What? The beach? What do you mean the beach in California with my mom? My memory, my happiest memory. I was on the beach, only she wasn't there. No one was there. It was just me. And it was just the beach. It went on for miles and miles and miles in the ocean. And I tried to swim and I tried to run. But no matter what, I kept going right back to the same spot. But then all of a sudden, there was a crack in the rocks. And it was glowing red. And when I got closer to it, I heard you. And so I went through it. It was a portal, so I went through it, and now I'm here. Oh my God. Just then, 8 and 11 catch up with them. We need to run. He's going to come after us. We got to get to the cave. All of them are running to the cave. The kids get in. Foo. But then all of a sudden, Henry catches up with them. Billy turns around, you son of a bitch, and goes after him. He punches Henry in the face, and at just that moment when he punches Henry in the face, Henry whips back. He lifts Billy up in the air, and he goes and oh my God, and he goes to blast 8 and 11 and Max, but they disappear. Oh my God. Okay, so Billy is up. Okay, Billy is up in the trees. Okay, and I'm sweating. Okay, Henry brings him back down. You don't understand, says Henry. And just like he did to Joyce, he throws Billy out of the way. Just then, his little Vecna hand comes out. He grabs Holly, and he's pulling on Holly. But then Derek grabs Holly, and then Derek pulls her back in, and he yells, "Suck my fat one!" Okay, so we continue on just as before. Henry now next needs to find a way to muster the courage to get into the cave and go through all of that. But meanwhile, the crew that is in the Upside Down climbs into the abyss. And not far behind them are Hopper, 11, and 8, okay? So they all go in, and they see the Mind Flayer on his back with his yucky little leggies. The Mind Flayer now knows that they're there, so he starts to wake up. 11 flies in to find Vecna, while Will does his little thing on the outside, right? At that same time, back in Camazotz, Will gets into Henry's mind and sees the whole tragic thing, that Henry was just a little boy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and something horrible happened to him. Will is trying to convince him to come back. Remember that he has a family that loves him. Please don't give in to it, Henry. You and I, we are one and the same. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. When all of a sudden, they hear the voice of a little boy. Kill him! Kill him now! It's the child. It's Henry as a child. He has been alive this whole time somewhere, trying to get through to Will, to Vecna, to everyone. But he has been squashed by the Mind Flayer, by Vecna, by all that is everything. 11 then throws Vecna onto the spike, spikes him. Joyce goes over and beheads him. And all of a sudden, the kids, because now Vecna is defeated, right? Because it goes Mind Flayer, Vecna, and then Mr. Watson, okay? Okay. As Vecna is defeated, the Mind Flayer starts to weaken. All of the kids are then released from its hold, things taken out of their mouths. However, when they cough, the particles come up and out of their mouth. But the Mind Flayer is now angry, realizing that it is the only Horcrux, for lack of a better term, it is the only Horcrux left, right? So they all run out of the Mind Flayer, okay? They are battling the Mind Flayer. Nancy tells the kids, follow me, runs them into a crevasse, does not realize that it's a dead end, gets all the kids behind her and starts firing with her gun. And then she pulls out her other gun, the one that she sawed off, and she's firing. And then everyone up top is doing their thing, and Robin is throwing the alcohol with the towel, and Steve and Dustin are underneath poking at the eggs, and they're doing, and Lucas has a wrist rocket. It is the whole thing. It is the whole shebang. And Hopper is shooting, and Joyce is just standing there because, whatever, and she's holding on to Will because they don't have weapons, okay, and that's fine, and Mike has a flare gun. As they defeat the Mind Flayer, it turns back into particles, just as it was that first time that Henry came into Dimension X. They think that they have defeated him when all of a sudden the particles start to fall from the sky, down, 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 and they give birth to Vecna once again. The minute Vecna draws breath, the demo bats start flying from every direction. They are taking over the whole sky. And then that familiar, the Demogorgons, thousands of them coming over every hill, every mesa, down the other side. Then Vecna grabs 8, grabs 11, and pulls them up into the air as the hungry, rabid, ravenous demogorgons wait down below. Hopper lunges and tries to get to Henry Vecna, but he stops him and holds him up into the air too. He turns him around so that they're facing each other and pulls him down. Jim Hopper. We meet again. Hopper is in Vecna's hold, frozen, but he looks at Vecna's eyes. Henry? Henry Creel. Hopper's now realizing that this is real, this is real. Like, this is really happening, holy shit. Vecna says, I've been watching you, and despite all of your battles and your medals that you think you won in the pursuit of defeating evil, I know that you failed the one person who was counting on you. The Demogorgons part, and one of them brings forward Sarah Hopper. She looks just like she did that day when they were at the park. Hopper's eyes widen with shock. All of a sudden, we start getting the flashbacks that we've been missing. Hopper and his wife Diane are at the park with their daughter Sarah. All of a sudden, they're running around and playing when she starts to experience some sort of respiratory distress. They quickly get down on their knees on her level. They're trying to make eye contact with her to help her regulate her breathing and her nervous system, but she is looking around as if she sees someone that nobody else can see. They do what any parent does. They bring her to the pediatrician. The pediatrician says, you know what, honestly, it's wintertime. She might have had a little asthma attack. I'm really not that worried about it. They bring her home, and they're talking, and they say, I'm just not satisfied that she's not eating. She's not acting like herself. She's listless. I think that we need to bring her to the hospital. When Jim says, why don't we bring her to the lab? Diane Hopper used to work at Hawkins' lab in the clinical department. Well, I guess we could. I mean, I'm sure Dr. Brenner would be happy to meet with us if he had the time. Diane, let's try it. She is our only daughter. She is our only chance. So the next day, Diane and Jim Hopper bring their daughter Sarah to the lab. Dr. Brenner opens the door of his office. Jim! Diane! It's great to see you all. Please, come in. Hi, Sarah. He closes the door, and as he does, his smile fades too. So, what brings you guys in here? How can I help you? Well, Doc, we're sorry to bother you with this, but we were playing at the park the other day, and Sarah started to... She couldn't catch her breath. We took her to the pediatrician, and they weren't worried about her, but she hasn't eaten. She'll barely drink. She's tired. She's not acting like herself. She's jumpy and paranoid, and we were just wondering if maybe your team could take a look at her. Absolutely. We'd be happy to. Why don't we bring her into one of the rooms, and we'll take some vitals and a couple vials of blood, and we'll start there. How's that sound? All right, great. Follow me. Heart and lungs sound great. Ears, eyes, nose, throat, everything checks out. The phlebotomist comes in and takes a big vial of Sarah's blood, and walks out. As they're waiting, ring, 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 ring. Brenner. Hi, Dr. Brenner. This is Steve down at the lab. I was wondering if you could come and join me down here for a moment regarding the blood sample from Sarah Hopper. Well, I was just about to go in and talk to her parents. Yeah, I understand, sir, but I think you're going to want to see this. All right, I'll be right there. Now, Dr. Brenner's dad was the one that started all of this. He was the one that first discovered the mind flayer's particles, and he became completely obsessed with this other world, this alternate dimension, and he went to Dimension X, came back, but when he came back, he was different. He was changed, and Brenner did not understand what had happened and what he had seen. Then one day his dad went out on a time travel mission and never came home. So Dr. Brenner has spent his entire life trying to find his father. Where had he gone? What had he seen? Ultimately, Dr. Brenner knew that the particles were quite literally from a different world. So he went to the U.S. government and agreed and got them to agree to fund this program, stating that certain individuals could use skills like telekinesis, clairvoyance, etc., to enter a state of mind that would allow them to go and infiltrate the minds, the conversations, the thoughts, and the rooms of enemies of state. But that's never what this was about. That might have been part of it, but that wasn't all he was doing. Hi, Doctor. If you want to take a look, this is my microscope. How many times have you tested this? 12, sir. And every time it's been reactive? Yes. Sarah Hopper is genetically the closest thing to Henry Creel. Brenner realizes that because of the injections he had first given to women at the lab, like Diane Hopper, just because she worked there to see if anything would change or happen, mixed with the chemicals that Hopper was exposed to during his time in the military with Agent Orange, that their biological child now held the natural key to be as close to Henry genetically as possible, which meant if he could take that child and isolate them, inject them with Henry's DNA through blood, and train them in all these different telekinetic abilities, that not only would that child be as powerful as Henry, but, if need be, could overpower Henry. Brenner had to think fast. He went back into the room and said, "I'm very sorry, but I'm afraid I don't have good news. Sarah is indeed very sick, and I would recommend that we begin chemotherapy right away to treat this as quickly and as aggressively as possible." He tells them that she has leukemia, something like that. But Sarah was never sick. Sarah had seen Henry. Sarah was meant to be Henry's first victim. Now, they give Sarah a bunch of drugs to make her hair fall out, to make her appear weak and listless, but then they would pull back on the dose to make it look like she was getting better. Because remember, Hopper said, you gotta fight. The doctors said that they had never seen anything like it. She really put up a fight. But ultimately, in the end, on that fateful day, Dr. Brenner called Diane and Jim into a room. To give them an update. All of a sudden, the alarms start going off. Sarah is crashing. They go in. She's been intubated. They're pounding on her chest. They're pressing on that breathing bag. And the vitals are going crazy. And then, boo! They flatline. Hopper is shocked. We're back in the abyss. But how is this possible? Now, keep in mind, he's now realizing that, this is Henry Curl. This is all real. This is all really, really happening. Sarah suddenly wakes up, sees her dad, and calls out to him, "Daddy." He goes to reach for her, but Vecna grabs his hand back again and brings him right up close. You have seen firsthand how powerful I am. You have seen all that I have taken and all I have destroyed. But now I have the power to give you back the one thing that you so desperately want. But in exchange, you must give me her. He lifts up Sarah and lifts up 11 so that they are right in front of Hopper. An eye for an eye. A life for a life. Jim looks at Sarah, looks at 11, tears streaming down his face, closes his eyes, looks back at Sarah, and reaches out to grab her hand. She reaches out to him, but just before they touch, Sarah dissolves back into particles. Vecna. You are a selfish and stupid man. You always have been. How could you not recognize your own daughter? When Hopper and Diane left the room to talk to Dr. Brenner, they switched her body with a dummy, just like they did with Will Byers. When they went back in and they saw her flatline, that was all fake. That was all fudged completely by the lab. Every single person in the room was in on it, right? But then what you didn't know was that now we are getting the flashbacks from Terry Ives. Terry Ives, a single woman, decides to participate in all the different experiments that the lab has going on. She's a hippie. What does she have to lose? She starts getting injected with Henry's DNA. She then goes into the little floaty tank and has herself a fantastic time. But what she didn't know was that she was pregnant. Suddenly, she goes into labor. Her water breaks, but there's something very, very wrong. It's more than the mucus plug. It's more than the bloody show. She is bleeding out. She gets rushed to Hawkins' lab to give birth. They do a hurried cesarean section, at which point Jane is born. and we see that Brenner was standing right there, and just behind him was Henry. The baby cries, but then Terry blacks out again. When she wakes up, she's in a room, and next to her is her sister, Becky. Jane, where's Jane? I'm so sorry, Terry. No, I heard her cry. Where's Jane? Terry starts going absolutely berserk. The orderlies come in, they give her a shot, they sedate her. Terry goes home. But she knows without a shadow of a doubt that she heard her baby cry. So she starts gathering evidence as much as she can, and she goes back to the lab. She sees a room with the rainbow painted on the outside and goes in. There's 2 little girls. To Terry's right is a little brunette girl, about 8 years old. To her left is a little blonde girl, about 4 years old. Terry lunges to her right. Jane! When she is then caught and brought in and held down against her will and given electroshock therapy. But someone is there holding her head. It was Diane Hopper. How do we know this? Because the person holding Terry's head, it was a gloved hand with a little silver watch. We see that watch again on Diane Hopper's wrist as she sat on her daughter's hospital bed as she was dying. Jane Ives is 8. Sarah Hopper is 11. Jim's memory comes flooding back, the whole truth. Vecna lets them see the whole truth, the whole entire truth. Hopper falls to the ground in despair as Vecna, now drunk with power, lifts 11 and 8 higher in the air. Their heads snap back, their eyes turn white. He is now taking their power. The Demogorgons are snarling. All they want are 11 and 8. They don't give a shit about anybody else there. They are just focused on 11 and 8. When all of a sudden, the Demopats, they've been swarming and swarming and swirling and swirling. One of them flies down, wraps its tail around Vecna's neck, and starts to choke him, breaking his focus. 11 and 8 crash to the ground when all of a sudden, someone starts to descend from the eye of the bat storm. A flowing red cape and black armor. As he comes to the ground, he says in a familiar voice, Vecna, you son of a bitch. Just then, the teenagers who are still trying to get the kids over to where they first climbed into the abyss, Dustin stops. He turns around because he knows that voice. It's Eddie, who is now Cass. Oh my God. Dustin screams, Hellfire lives! They start running towards one another. And they give each other the biggest hug. But what is this? Henderson. That day, in the Upside Down, the bats, they got me. But when they bit me, they turned me into this. Well, but you're here. That you can come home. No, Dustin, I can't come with you. But I will always be with you. In here. And in here. I want to thank you for giving my uncle my necklace. But now it's my turn to give something to you, my best friend. Eddie, now Cass, pulls his sword out of his belt and hands it to Justin. Henderson. Never change. Never change. Oh my God. Okay. All of a sudden, from his other belt, Eddie draws a sword. He stabs Vecna in the eye, twisting the sword and flicking out his eyeball like a little olive. Then he goes and he lops off Vecna's hand. Hopper stands up and draws his gun and shoots off Vecna's other arm. 11 and 8 clear away the Demogorgons, and 11 takes Vecna's legs and breaks them. As Vecna lays there, dying, his head turns and he says, "You think you've won, but you have already lost." He turns into particles again, billowing around, but this time different. Suddenly, the particles, they start to move. Like snow falling when a gust of wind comes to carry them away. A creature bays in the background. Through the particles, through the fog. A 3-headed dragon. Mike grabs Joyce, pulls her back. Robin, Jonathan, and Steve continue to get the kids the hell out of there. Murray helps them down onto the roof. The dragon hurls towards the group. Will taps into the dragon's mind because he realizes now that the dragon has been the source of all of this. The particles were coming from the dragon's fiery mouth. He has always existed. He has always lived. He is an ancient, like older than like the gods. He's an ancient beast. And this whole time, with every breath that he drew and expelled, he expelled these particles, just waiting for someone to come down into the abyss and take hold of them. That day, when 11 banished Henry through the wall, and he stood there, he reached out for the particles. We thought this whole time that he created the Mind Flayer. Then some of us thought that the Mind Flayer created him. the dragon created the mind flare, which then gave birth to Vecna. Lucas and Dustin, Eddie, realizing that this world is about to fall, he's got to go. He grabs his cape. Where's my robe? He grabs his cape. Henderson, you know what to do. Think of the game. Whoosh. And does the cape. And up he flies. Up he flies with his demo bats. They got to go back to another world because this world is now crumbling. Well, don't worry, because Lucas and Dustin are still there. They start to run. They're running towards the dragon. They realize that this is it. This is the final fucking battle. Hopper and Nancy start firing in unison. They manage to take off one of the dragon's heads. It falls to the ground. 11 and 8 fly up, and 8 makes the dragon see that the rocks are flying around all over the place to distract it. And 11 takes off its head. And then, in that moment, Will the Wise, he lifts up his friends. Dustin, with his sword, stabs the dragon through the heart. And Lucas, with his wrist rocket, shoots off the handle of the sword so that it cannot be pulled out. The dragon falls to the ground. And the particles go up, but then they start to spin like a tornado. Because the dragon who ruled Dimension X has now been killed. The whole world is turning into like a vacuum, like a black hole. So they run. Everybody runs. They get down. Murray, gets them down. And all of a sudden, swirls. Crash. The abyss vanishes. But as it does, lightning fills the sky. And what do we see but the outline of Cass? He's all right. Now, it's time to go. They load up all the kids onto the truck. Oh, that's my husband getting his tacos. They load up all the kids onto the truck. Robin and Steve get into one of the Hummers, and they're driving out. Everyone, such a sigh of relief. The kids are safe. The Hawkins crew is safe. Everyone is all right. 11 and 8, everyone is all right. When all of a sudden, someone runs out in front of Steve's Hummer. He slams on his brakes. It's Billy fucking Hargrove. Steve throws the car into park. He jumps out of the car. Billy? Well, if it isn't Steve the Hare Harrington. Billy reaches out his arms and Steve goes in to hug him. I can't believe how is this? Where the hell have you been, man? What is this? Billy says. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. To which Steve says, try me. I've heard stranger things. At last, someone says it. Well, they load Billy into the car, and No, Cupsy. No. We don't eat my lights. Load Billy into the car. And then they drive out of the portal of the upside down to get to the right side up. But unfortunately, the military is there waiting for them. The military comes and immediately surrounds their car. They open up the doors, they open up the back hatch, and they start pulling the kids out and rounding them all up when all of a sudden... What is it? Everyone looks up. It's Katinka! Yuri is flying Katinka! When all of a sudden we say, hey, American, catch! It's Enzo! Topless! He throws down a ladder and lowers it down right near the kids. But just in that moment, Dr. K turns around and grabs a gun from one of those military dudes that's right behind her. 11 tries to stop her, but she can't. Her powers are gone. Suddenly, 2 boots hit the ground at the bottom of the ladder from the helicopter. It's Dr. fucking Owens. He looks at Dr. K and says, "Oh, K. What the hell have you done?" Get it? Not like, okay. Okay. Because it's Dr. K and they're on a first name basis. Okay. What the hell have you done? Sully, speed 'em up. All of a sudden, all these Hummers and tanks start hurling towards the base. Kay looks at Owens and says, "What are they going to do? Slam through my fence?" At which point, Erica Sinclair, who is being held hostage by the soldiers, by the way, because she and Dr. Clark were caught up in the tower and brought to the military base as a form of punishment, she says, "No need. Get the off of me, you nasty punk ass. I'll open it for you." She pulls the remote out of her pocket. Bink! And that's on telemetry. To which Mr. Clark then echoes, "Science rocks!" So, the military gets rounded up, but the Upside Down is now like a swirling storm. Because remember, the Upside Down is a wormhole. Wormholes, when you puncture them, they act, it becomes it's a vacuum. It's a vacuum. L, close the gate. I can't. I don't have my powers. They're gone. But suddenly, through the storm and everything in the Upside Down, someone is running towards the gate. It's Henry. Henry! Run! Henry leaps through the gate at the last second. He turns around and lets out his powers. As he is closing the gate, particles are flying out of his fingers. The last bit of his powers. The last bit of his past. And as the last little particle flies out, it gets sucked up into the Upside Down, and the gate closes. "Dr. Owens?" says Henry. They walk towards each other. Henry. Big hug. Feels good to finally call you Henry and not Peter. I know. Oh, it was just a code name, I know. But you always loved that book, Peter Pan. I read it to you every night, you remember? But remember, Henry, you were always the same, right in here. As they are reconciling, Hopper walks over to 11. It's okay, Dad. They cry. They embrace. I never stopped looking for you. How could I not know? How could I not know my own daughter? 11 says, it was the dragon. We were all under the dragon's spell. Now that he's gone, we remember everything. He manipulates the mind, and he created other beasts to do his bidding. The particles, everything came from his fiery breath, which was made of magic from another world. Owens says, when it was first discovered, we didn't understand it. Brenner wanted to harness it and duplicate it, but I knew it was far more evil than that. When I found out about the children, I took Henry, for he was the original. But while we were gone, Terry, and then Diane. I was reading files in my office when I realized what Brenner was doing. I ran down the hall and I found you and Diane being injected with a formula to muddle your memories. I'm sorry, Jim. I'm sorry that I couldn't help more. I'm sorry that I didn't tell you sooner, but I knew Brenner was a monster. And I had to wait in the shadows until the right moment. I wanted to tell you, I really did, but I knew the best way to keep Sarah safe was to keep Henry with me until it was time. Brenner and his experiments got worse and worse, and when Henry returned to the lab, Brenner was drunk with the thought of having him back. Henry took Sarah under his wing and awakened her powers for good. Henry then turns and says, we thought that I could convince you, but instead we fought. And when Henry was banished, the lab was in absolute hysterics. It was you, said 11, her memories now rushing back to her. You took me in your car. You brought me to the edge of the woods, to Benny's. Yes. And then I went back, said Owens, as a double agent. While helping Brenner, I also looked for Henry. Brenner was determined to get Sarah back, but when I discovered that she was with Hopper, I knew that she was safe. That day that we met up in the diner, Hopper, I gave you the paperwork, and I gave you everything, the birth certificate, but unfortunately, Colonel Sullivan was not convinced. But after that day, that 11 took down the helicopter, Colonel Sullivan stepped forward. I went back into the bunker to go get Doc. I realized in that moment when I saw you take down that helicopter that he was right about you and that if we were going to defeat this evil, we would need you. But by the time we were ready to mobilize, Dr. K had already used her connections with Brenner to get this base set up. Even though K had this base, we've been watching this whole time. 11 shakes her head. But how? How? Suddenly, Kali cries out, "Oh my God." Terry Ives. Owens continues. Like Max, Terry was under a sort of spell. Brenner tried to incapacitate her, but her sister, Becky, ran in just in the nick of time. We put them up in an old house, and I forged documents to have it look like it was their aunt's old house. Brenner put locks on the outside of the doors, but it didn't matter, because in the back of the house, there was a hatch. We had help. Dr. Owens turns to look at Mike, Nancy, and Holly. From your father. Our dad, they say in unison. Suddenly, we flash forward to the hospital. Ted, are you giggling yet? Ted and Karen Wheeler are there side by side in their hospital beds, having just woken up from their ordeal with the Demogorgons. Dad, Mom, oh, kids. They all hug. Oh, hold on, you're squeezing me. Oh. Dad, well, I guess I can tell you now that I'm retiring. I can't possibly be in the force with a bad back when I've still got 3 kids that I need to chase after. Ted was recruited by the CIA after his military experience. He and Mr. Sinclair were tasked with watching after the town because we knew that Henry would try to return. Why would he return? What do you mean? Said Nancy. Because, said Ted, his father, Victor, is still here. And so is his sister, Alice. Karen smiles. It was a horrible night. We then get the flashback from Victor Creel. The whole thing happens in the dining room. The poor mom up and away, whatever. Yeah. Owens took Henry from Brenner. But Alice, after having tests done, possessed no magical powers or abilities. She hadn't been exposed to the particles, so she was adopted out. Her memory, however, was intact. So we told her that she would find a new family and begin a new life, but that she could never tell. This got harder and harder as she got older. She got wiser. I wanted to know what happened to my brother. But that's when they introduced me to Ted. Ted's job was to protect Karen, but they could never reveal her real identity. Karen said, when it all started happening, we knew it was only a matter of time. That night, when the Demogorgons came to our house, we weren't expecting them because we thought that they would either stay in the abyss or the upside down. We didn't realize that they could come into our world. Mike said, But why Will?